Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is among the world leaders commending Israel's killing of Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar in the Gaza Strip. Mr. Trudeau calls Mr. Sinwar a brutal leader of a group that Canada has deemed a terrorist organization. U.S. President Joe Biden says he will speak with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and other Israeli leaders to congratulate them. Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris says Mr. Sinwar's death gives us an opportunity to finally end the war in Gaza. Mr. Sinwar was the architect of last year's militant attack on Israel that killed 1,200 people and saw about 250 kidnapped. Joining me now for reaction to Sinwar's death is Eylon Levy, Israeli citizen spokesperson. Eylon, thank you for joining me today.
Hello, good to be here.
Now, we know that world leaders have weighed in, but what was the reaction in Israel?
Yes, it's nice to see the word world leaders commend Israel, not condemn Israel. Israelis have a sense of cautious optimism today that this might be the beginning of the end of the war that Sinwar started on October 7th. Yahya Sinwar was one of the most evil men of our lifetime. He was the Osama bin Laden of Gaza. He was the mastermind of the October 7th massacre, the sadistic murder of 1,200 people. For a year, he's been refusing to release the hostages he's been holding onto, and he's dragged the whole region into war. And there is hope now that the removal of one of the major obstacles to a hostage deal will finally allow us to move forward towards an end of the war in which Hamas will return the hostages and relinquish power. And that is exactly what Israel is telling Hamas's remaining terrorists now. It's over. You've lost. If you surrender and release the hostages, we will let you leave Gaza and live. But if you continue fighting and holding on to hostages, then we're still coming to get you.
Now, prior to the passing, many world leaders tried to pressure Israel not to go into Rafah. Is finding and killing Sinwar in Rafah a vindication for Israel?
Absolutely. For the last year, Israel has been withstanding immense international pressure to leave the Hamas terror regime in power. But there is a sense in Israel that this war is existential, that we cannot go back to the world that existed on October 6th, 2023, with terrorist regimes, Iranian proxy armies living on our borders. When the war started, the free world wanted us to win. It understood that for sustainable peace, Hamas has to go. It can no longer rule the Gaza Strip. But Hamas's strategy of engineering suffering in Gaza was very effective in getting world leaders to pressure Israel to wrap this up and essentially call it a draw with Hamas. Israel withstood that pressure, and it's a good thing it did, because if Israel had taken world leaders' advice, many of the hostages who are free would still be hostages, and Mr. Sinwar would still be a free man.
Now, on the topic of hostages, what happens now with Sinwar's death? In your view, does it make it easier for Israel to have those hostages returned?
I can tell you the hostage families are hopeful that this will create an opportunity for the hostages to be released. They're calling Sinwar's elimination the removal of the last major obstacle to a hostage deal. Sinwar was an extremist even by Hamas's terms. He abducted the hostages. He didn't want to release them. And so there is hope now that the world, that Israel, that the mediators can leverage this opportunity to get towards a deal. And that has to be a deal in which Hamas understands that it has lost the war, that it's over, that it has no choice but to surrender and free the hostages. That is the hope among the hostages family. They see this as a real turning point, and they hope that they can leverage this moment. By the way, I should add, Hamas's new leader is Khalid Mashal. He lives in Qatar. Qatar is a NATO ally. The world needs to demand that Qatar force Mashal to surrender and free the hostages. And if not, he must be extradited to the United States to face justice. The world has the leverage to make this happen if world leaders want to do it.
Now, we do just have under a minute, but Prime Minister Netanyahu has offered safe passage for anyone who lays down their guns. What do you make of that offer?
That it is a nasty but probably necessary compromise. We want to get the hostages out. And so Israel is offering the people who are holding them an amnesty, saying, if you get them out, then we'll let you go. because our goal is to get the hostages out and to prevent any future hostage crisis, any return to October 7th. So that would be a very bitter pill to swallow. But if terrorists walk out with their hands above their heads, put their weapons down, and give us back the hostages, well, that's exactly what we've been fighting for the last year to try to achieve.
Eylon, thank you so much for the time today.
My pleasure. Thank you.